This is Platemark, a deep dive into the world of prints and the people who make the ecosystem tick. I'm your host, Anne Schaefer. As an independent curator and fair organizer, I'm on a mission to demystify printmaking and expose the heart of this collaborative community. From the technical challenges to the creative breakthroughs, we're taking you behind the scenes of the art world's most charming corner. As I like to say, Platemark, bettering the world one print at a time. Today we're talking to a native New Yorker whose journey through printmaking is as varied and textured as the city itself. David Barthold started his printmaking career at just 13 years old, eventually traveling from Queens to the historic print studios of Paris, where he studied under the legendary Stanley William Hayter at Atelier 17. But what makes David's story so compelling isn't just his technical pedigree, it's where that expertise has led him lately. After a long hiatus from the medium, David returned to printmaking with a sense of urgency. During the pandemic, he took his linoleum cuts out of the studio and onto the streets of Brooklyn, wheat pasting poignant portraits of figures like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and George Floyd across Park Slope and beyond. In this episode, David and I talk about what it was like to discover printmaking at such a young age and eventually land in the avant-garde world of 1980s Paris. His shift towards street art as a way to remember the lost and honor the living during a time of global upheaval, and why he came back finally to the grease and gears after 30 years away, and how his time in trades like construction and ceramics informs his work today. David is an artist who truly understands that printmaking is a living, breathing tool for communication, and I can't wait for you to hear his story. Let's get rolling. David, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming on Platemark today.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. You know, I love to talk to artists, and you're an artist that I've wanted to talk to for a while. Although we had a conversation recently, everyone needs to know we recorded an oral history interview for the Atelier 17 project, which people may or may not have seen go by. It's a nonprofit that Christina Weil started to help promote and encourage new scholarship and exhibitions, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the founding of Atelier 17. So you were on because you studied with Hayter, which we'll get to because I, of course, need to talk to you about Hayter for all the peoples. But before that, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is David Barthold. I'm a native New Yorker, and I began my career as a printmaker at age 13 at the studio of Ruth Leaf in Douglaston, New York. I went on to study printmaking at Oberlin College and later at Atelier in Paris. And I worked at s3e Studio in Soho and Broome Street for Adi Rishner and Craig O'Brien and at a couple of other studios before abandoning printmaking altogether at the age of 23 and returning in about 2010. And I now work at Guana Studio Space in Brooklyn.
Okay, we have nothing more to talk about. That was everything.
That was easy.
Yeah, the thing that I thought we should jump into first, because I've never talked to anybody about it, is your project. Well, I don't even think it was a formal project, but you wheat pasting around the streets of Park Slope and elsewhere during the pandemic. And I just wanted to kind of ask you about the nitty gritty. Like, did you get in trouble? Is it okay? Do you have to get a permit? I mean, what's the what?
In contrast to the impression I may be giving you right now, I'm not really a heroic, badass, lawbreaker type person. And I kind of go out, thinking like, oh, geez, I really hope nobody chases me or arrests me. And what I usually find when I'm out there wheat pasting is people are complimentary. They typically are interested in what I'm doing. And like I always give, if somebody, notices what I'm doing, I always hand them a poster, usually very pleased. So only on a couple of occasions have I been confronted by people who didn't want me to post. And I'm always, I'm not really confrontational. I just like, oh yeah, sorry, I'll move on. But there was a time I think in the 90s or during the Giuliani administration when there were undercover cops, kind of waiting in cars in Soho to arrest wheat paste wild posters, and people were being arrested. It's kind of like, the Keith Haring effect where you get your badass credential by being handcuffed. And hauled in front of a judge or whatever. I mean, I probably would have been a puddle of tears if anybody had ever done that to me, but it's really just sort of like, oh, I want to just be part of this. I want to be part of this historical moment and add my voice, to the conversation visually. And honestly, it's a little bit odd because the political, sort of the commemorative ones that I did, for example, George Floyd or John Lewis or Ruth Bader Ginsburg or AOC that I put up were really responsive. They weren't part of my art practice at all. I don't consider portraiture to be part of my art practice at all. I had been putting things up. There's a claw image that I've been putting up for a while before that. But all of this really came out of a request on the part of Rachel Ostro, who is a printmaker and a painter, and she was a member here at Guana Studio Space. And she used to be the organizer of an annual fundraising party that we had called Halawanis. And she was, I'm a very responsive person, so somebody would say, like, David, we need your help. And I'd be like, yes, what can I do? And I'll like, well, our year's theme is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I said, oh, that's great. And I'll like conjure up, what could I do that is evocative of that? Like, a hand reaching up out of a bloody pool, or like a leather face, like something. So I thought, I want to do this quick and dirty, so I'll just get some linoleum and scratch something out. And that's what I did. And I had a friend, a studio mate, Ryan O'Connor, who grabbed me one day and said, you got to put this on the street. And he dragged me by the collar out and like, we're going to go wild posting against the street. And I'd go out with him and slap a few things up. And it's kind of like, there's this thing I used to do in college when I was at Oberlin, where I would just sort of take an image and I would silk screen it and just hang it sort of cryptically around the campus and without any explanation. And people would know it was me, and they'd come running up to me. It's like, are you in a band? Was that like a thing? Did I miss it? And I'd be like, oh, wow, it's like power, like I've got this ability to create mystery and charm people somehow, or communicate, And so it really was first just about, I just want to hang cool stuff out there. I want to be the guy who hangs the cool stuff out there and makes this city a little bit more interesting and a little bit more mysterious. Like, what does it mean? Like, what's it about? I never put my name on my work. I never do that. I really feel like people want to find me, they do the work of finding me, and people do. People like, oh, wait a minute, no, Google Images are like, who is this guy? Do you know this guy? And Instagram is very, people just kind of, I don't know, the algorithm gets you or something. But so I had a street art practice before that, and then lockdown came and COVID came, and my studio mate was like, we're in despair. We can't cut our hands off, man. Like, we can't even go in the studio. And I had some linoleum. It was actually an odd shape. I don't have the George Floyd print right in my hand right now, but it's kind of like this weird trapezoidal shape, because it was a fragment from another project that I'd done, and it was just kind of like there. And I was working on another image of Donald Trump, and my wife said, nobody wants to see that. Like, why don't you do something that means something? And like, oh, this poor man was just murdered. I'll do a portrait of him. And we were in the house at this point. There's no studio, there's nothing. And I didn't have a brayer, I didn't have ink, so I have to stand in a line, distance line outside the art supply store. And I get what I need. I cut the linoleum, and I went down to the basement, and I was hand printing with a baron, and printed up a bunch of them and hung them to dry on the pipes in the basement. And then Sarah and Julie and my wife, we're all like pent up. Everybody's at home teaching on your laptop, and we had to like exchange rooms depending on when we wanted the Wi-Fi. Like, it was crazy. And so everybody's all cabin fever. So I said, well, why don't we all go out and we'll paste them up? And then we just went out with some glue and started slapping stuff up around the neighborhood. And the response was kind of electric, like right away. I didn't put my name on it, but I think I posted it on Instagram, and then people started to find me. And one of the first people who found me was Lisa Berman, who's also a print scholar, and her father is Merrill Berman, who's a print collector's storied collection of posters going back to like Black Panthers and like crazy cinematic stuff and like political stuff. And so she found me, and we met and had a conversation. I gave her, a copy of the poster, one thing leading to another. This was not like part of an art thing. It's like, oh, I got to do this for my practice. So I got to say something. I've got to participate in the conversation. And that, weirdly enough, got me so much more traction than any art project I ever did. The political stuff was just like bang. Even if I put up something like Ted Cruz, and then people generally don't like Ted Cruz, and that would just like go off like a rocket. People would like, whoa. And oddly enough, I had a friend in college. Her name is Cornelia Lauf. She's an art historian. And I showed her my portfolio once in the 80s, and I was, doing all this whoop-de-doo personal stuff. And she said, if you're going to draw people, you have to draw famous people, because nobody cares about, the guy in the corner. They only care about famous things. Like, oh, you're so cynical, but she's right. She was totally right. Cornelia was right. So it's like, draw a picture of somebody people hate, and you're going to get attention for it. So that's the whole street art thing is, and I have sort of mixed feelings about it, because I don't want to be like coasting on like the tragedy of somebody else's life being, taken away from them. But I did do a fundraiser. I had them printed up at Bushwick Print Lab. We did a fundraiser, and we raised, $1,500, and I let the people who were purchasing the poster designate where they wanted the money to go to. So there was like a range of recipients for the proceeds from that. So it turned into like a fundraiser thing, and John Lewis too.
Right.
And I made friends because Merrill Berman sold some of his collection to the Getty Study Center.
Oh.
I was like, oh my God. And, and Lisa told me this, like, oh, that's just like amazing, that this was done for others and for me too. And also Armin Kunz got that whole series. He got the whole series. He says, I want the whole deck. Oh. And he got them in the National Archives in Washington. So people were really working for me, and I'm very grateful. And it's very important to note, what has been done for me in that respect. And Jennifer Farrell at the Met also acquired the George Floyd. So I just thought she was buying it for herself, because it was like an Instagram purchase, like a fundraiser thing. I was like, no, this is like in the collection. So now, like, I got this little red card. I'm like permanent life member of the Met because they bought this print.
The thing about you having mixed feelings and about being cognizant and grateful to the people who have, in your terms, done things for you. I mean, you're reducing your own power as the artist. Like the things were meaningful. They were punching at a moment in time. They hit the streets, and I mean, anyway. I want you to take, like it's you. It was your work. It was good, and they want it because it was you.
It's true. Gratitude is important. Like, Jenny Gibbs from IFPDA, out of the blue, said, do you want to be in a panel with Armin and Wardell Milan? We're going to talk about, like the situation in printmaking now, and like, holy shit, this is real. And okay. So she put me on this panel, and I didn't really know Jenny, but she's totally nice and a real sense of humor about things. And the question came up, well, you're doing all these portraits of Black people. Why don't you post them in Uptown in Harlem? It's like, well, my knees are shit. I got these old knees. And what if I got some help for you? What if Wardell and Armin went out posting with you? And I'm like, damn, okay. And so it happened that we did go out posting in Harlem. And, you get attention. It's educational, because sometimes people don't know, like, who's that? Who's this person? And you're like, oh, this is what this person did, what their role was in history. And no flack from anybody. Yeah, it's New York. It's like people just going to walk on by, nobody knows going to really typically bother you.
Well, it's like, if you know, right? If you're on the lookout for that kind of thing, you'll find it everywhere. But if you're not.
Yeah. So it was this really cool New York moment. I have to say to Jenny, massive credit to Jenny for the E.M. Forster thing, like only connect. Like, I'm going to put you with this person, you're going to do this thing. And I was like, yes, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I did it. And my knees are worse now, but
print people are like that. They're grand connectors, right? Yeah, it's amazing. So, but the thing that I wanted to say about street art, which is so fascinating, is it's a huge audience, right? But it's almost like making a podcast. You have no idea who has seen it, and will it actually lead to anything concrete? I mean, in this case it did, but it's so hard to know. Oh gosh. Anyway.
Well, it does lead to things. And the thing is, a couple of years ago, another thing right out over the transom out of the blue is just like, hey, do you do commercial work? And like, I'm calling about a campaign we're doing for a pharmaceutical, and have you ever done, work on commission? And I was saying, who is this person? Should I answer the email? They want to commission me to do something for a pharmaceutical? What is this, Pfizer? Or who are these people? And Farrah's like, you should be careful. And my friends are like, go, get it. And it's a small ad agency, and they're helping launch a product for a startup, small pharma thing. And it's a heart drug. So they saw my street art, and they called me up and they said, can you make a heart for us? And I got a commission. That turned out to be like a year's pay, for a school teacher.
Wow.
This hadn't happened before or since. But I also didn't know I had no idea how to price something like this. I would have totally punted it, let it go for $5,000.
Okay.
And I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and he said, oh no. Here's what you do. It's going to be this many thousand for the roughs, this for the first round, and they have options. They have tiered options. And then if they want to take the options, this is the price range you go with. And I had to do a little negotiating myself, just to give you a sense of the size of the commission that I won. I paid him $5,000 because he got me
wow,
more than $50,000
wow,
above what I would have initially bid. And I was paid for it. I was paid. So, it's just sort of like, yeah, I mean, it got me there. It led to some kind of fortune. I mean,
sure.
it has, the thing is, I have zip skill at pushing myself into the arms of money. And also there's this weird Norwegian ethos. I'm Norwegian American, and it's called the Jantelov. And it's actually based on a poem by a Danish poet whose name escapes me at the moment. But the Jantelov is like a series of self-abnegating whiplashes that you're supposed to inflict on yourself in the deeply Lutheran tradition of Christian self-denial. And one of them is, you shall not believe that you are better than us. And it's like, oh, wow. I mean, keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your hands busy. Like, do your job, and
no room for ego.
No. We're talking about Protestantism here.
It's a little at odds with being an artist.
Yeah, totally at odds. It's a big topic. I'm just kind of like, dipping my oar in the water for a moment here, but I don't want to make too much of it. I mean, I'm plenty egotistical.
Okay.
as most men are, but there's that little creature, up in my head, reminding me
right.
that I'm not better.
Well, I think a balance is good.
Yeah, some.
So you're open to more illustration work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know, people, everyone. Oh, hey, look. Nice. I do love the linoleum cuts. They're so cool.
Thank you.
The thing that intrigues me about, well, there's several things we have to get to. Hater, not the least. But I'm so curious about your 30-year hiatus from art. What happened?
I was born into a family that really was very supportive of artistic and intellectual and musical pursuits. And when I was a small boy, my father took my brother to art lessons in the basement of the Museum of Modern Art. We used to have art classes there. It's where I think there's like an auditorium down there. I'm not even sure. They totally rebuilt it out. But this was a well-known program. You can look it up, and I don't quite remember the name, but so he worked at Rockefeller Center at 1230 Avenue of the Americas in the American Rubber Building, which is grand. As we go in, and it's like, this is like, post-war America at its apex, like Mad Men stuff. This humming ventilation inside this mysterious, vast Art Deco jewel box. I'd go in with him, and he's a lawyer in his nice office, and he'd take my brother down. But my grandmother, who's from Scotland, was looking at my work at this time, and she said, I think you're giving art lessons to the wrong boy. So my dad switched his interest to me and started taking me in instead of my brother Charlie. So this was like mother's milk or father's milk to me. It was, and my mother was gifted at drawing, and I remember a drawing that she made for me as a very small child, and it was just like my amniotic fluid. Growing up was art and music, and because the schools that I went to had industrial arts and had print shop, and I was exposed to all of this, like really saturated enrichment, Ruth Leaf studio. By the time I was 23, I'd been in printmaking for 10 years. And I'd gone to Paris, I'd come back, I'd worked at Atelier. I'd been like deeply immersed in printmaking for a long time. And I think I came to be tired of it and a little bit took it for granted. Like I have to grow into something bigger than printmaking, because I started to see it as a sort of a small world. And it is a sort of a small, or it was a smaller world then.
Yeah.
Smaller world then.
Yeah.
Because I came back after 30 years and it's like, oh, you're still here. I go to these things and I was like, oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, you've been. And I joined the Association of Print Scholars, and just like, I'll throw a question in a listserv, and it's like, hell's a poppin'? Like, oh no, Audie Richner's, he moved to Massachusetts and his family runs a restaurant. And like, oh my God, like all these people, like, I know Steve Sangenario, like, I know Craig O'Brien, he's out at Anderson Ranch. Like, wow. It's when you're young, you think you're passing through this wilderness of people and experience and boundless horizons. Like, no, the world is smaller than you believe it to be. And you find out as you get old, like me.
Yep.
But it's all still there.
You're not
somewhere.
Well, so what were you doing after you were 23?
I was painting, and
So you didn't stop being an artist. You just stopped the printmaking part.
I threw myself into painting.
Okay.
When I was in Paris, I would visit the Pompidou Center and the Louvre, which was free one day a week, I think Mondays. And there was like the Brancusi studio was right there in front of the Pompidou Center at Les Halles. I got really exposed to all this amazing painting, and I just thought, oh, I really ought to get into this more, because I was just seeing sort of the whole kind of parade of mostly European art back to the Renaissance and the ancient world. And I thought, I just started to feel very shallow and superficial. And I came back to New York, and I moved into a place in North Side in Brooklyn, so between Greenpoint and Williamsburg. And at that point, I was a rudimentary French speaker, and I noticed some men in my building speaking French. I thought, oh, they must be Haitian, I imagined. And it turned out I started talking to them, and they were West African. And I struck up a friendship with them. And I thought, oh, these men are so beautiful. Like, I've got to paint these guys. And they became my models. But I did a lot of work, these kind of somber settings of, these African men, kind of a little bit like Manet might have painted. But I could not have chosen a subject or a style which would have been less interesting to anybody in the art world in the early 80s than this subject.
Right.
And I even had a visit. I went to Oberlin College. Bill Olander, who was a curator of the Allen Art Museum, came to my little miserable apartment on Bedford Avenue to look at my work. And it's one of these moments, kind of big thing where you're this, brilliant young thing at school, and people think, what is he doing now? He's out in the world, what's he doing? And then they come and they see what you're doing. It's just kind of like,
Oh.
No, I thought it's my duty to grow, to seek out new horizons, to do the difficult thing, and to try to grow into something that's a meaningful challenge. And this was the meaningful challenge I set to myself. And it was, it's kind of devastating in a sense, because you're young and you think, oh, I'm really good at this. And like, I'm so energetic, and I'm going to work really hard, and I'm going to make these wonderful things that are going to amaze me. And then some people admire them, and then other people just kind of like pass. And I think when you're young, you need to feel like you're making headway, that somebody sees you for what you're doing. You don't have that kind of steely, like, I don't really care what people think about my work now. I don't care. I don't need to get paid for it. I don't need to be recognized for it. Of course, it's very rewarding, but I don't really care. I've had my ego professionally steamrollered so many times that I just don't care. I'm going to do what I want. That's it. Like it, don't like it, I don't care. I'm just going to keep going. But when you're 23 or 24, 25, you need a little, little sunshine. You need to know that all the struggle is leading you somewhere, or it's bringing something good to somebody else. And that, that wasn't happening.
Last time I talked to you, you were telling me about teaching. You're teaching in a high school that does not have anything to do with art, but it's related. So tell us about your day job.
I'm a dental technician. And like some people, when I gave up my pottery business, which is a whole other episode, there are people I knew who fell over when I told them I was going to become a dental technician. But the reason for that is because it's actually a ceramic art. There's ceramic skill involved in being a dental technician. So I thought, well, I've been in a very, very technical trade. I'm a very technical kind of person. I really like to get things right, very tactile. And I was looking at medical professions, and this sounded like the most artistic medical thing. You're making things with your hands. Long story short, I went to City Tech. I was a technician for a few short years. Then I was hired by the school, and I became the manager of the program, the lab manager of the program for 7 years. And I got thoroughly, corrosively sick of the whole job because it was just like being everybody's mother and father. And I had so many people to take care of, and I was doing a very poor job at taking care of myself. And I thought, like, I'll be a teacher, because I could see at the end of the year, it was the teachers who were getting all the love and the tears and the hugs and like the cards, and I'm thinking, like, I made your job possible. How are you getting that love? How are you getting that? And I'm not getting that. And I'm thinking, like, I'm the man behind the green curtain that's making it possible for the students to do their work and you to do your work, and I'm not getting it. So anyway, the hungry little heart in me saw that teaching was the person to be. And there were students, and I was frankly a teacher already, because there were students in the program. It's like, aren't you a teacher here? And I was like, no, I'm not a teacher. Like, you should be a teacher, Mr. Barthold. I jumped to high school teaching, and it was horribly difficult the first year, and I cried, and I would go home and I cry, and I tried to quit, and I realized I'm stuck. I gotta stay with this. And I gradually got better. And now I work at Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn, and I teach dental technology, which is a largely hands-on manual trade. It's rapidly evolving into a much more digital sphere, but everyone will tell you, who's any good at it, that the manual training is the foundation, that you have to have a good set of hands, a good eye. You have to be able to read a case correctly, and the hands-on work is the best way to get you into this. So it is very artistic. There's something very, very sculptural about it. And I try to bring that out in my students and make it kind of like an art class, like a crypto art class, sneaky art class.
Nice. When you say that the hands part is the foundation, most of us feel that way about drawing in art school, and how many art schools have been dropping back the requirement that every student goes through drawing 1 and 2 or whatever their program was. It's crazy to me that a school could stop the foundational parts, It's crazy.
I'm opening up a larger conversation here, because there's this whole discourse about artificial intelligence and the role of artificial intelligence in workplace and workflow and literacy. And my whole focus is on what people can do without the help of artificial intelligence. Like, can you actually go into a room and make a good impression on other people before you open your mouth? I mean, this is about employment, like getting a job, a real job with real people in a real place. Like, how are you able to speak intelligently about what you're doing? Not, can you hand me a piece of paper that looks like you are expressing understanding of a topic? No, I want you to sit in front of me and express understanding of the topic. I really tend to focus on the things that you can't hack. Most of my assignments are on paper. There is a trend toward blue book exams in academia now. Handwritten assignments, or actually performing performative scholarship in front of the teacher, in front of other students, in the presence of other people. And there is a demand on the part of students for this too, that people do recognize that it's like basic human competencies are being eroded or colonized by artificial intelligence. And this is part of what it's become the foundation of my pedagogy, is like, show you have to be able to sit down in front of me and tell me, what was the subject of yesterday's lesson? And you'll get like a deer in the headlights look. First time you ask the question. And as soon as people realize, like, no, oh my God, I'm supposed to be paying attention to retaining stuff. I mean, if you look at the whole course of human, I don't call it civilization or just the presence on the planet, there's so many things that people have done and can do and do without the benefit of technology, without the benefit of even literacy, even just verbal memorization, verbal retention, your ability to engage and interact effectively with other people, your ability to master technical subjects, to impart knowledge to other people. All of this happened before the advent of computers, artificial intelligence, and they're still valuable skills. And I joke with my friends, I'm trying to return to the womb of my own, because I recognize that these deeply human qualities are still valuable in other people. I don't really care about what somebody can spit out after, whacking away at their smartphone with their thumbs for a few seconds. I don't really care about that. I want to know, when you're in the pocket, what can you do? What can you actually do?
Right. An aspect of that I come back to again and again is this idea of human connection. Like if if we're not connecting with each other, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one, that AI, because it's helpful in so many ways, but I agree with you. Obviously, I'm a Luddite as well. I don't know. I feel like, facts can be good, but there's got to be some kind of emotional purchase or something. I don't know.
I'm going to bring this back to printmaking because I feel like there's a lot of people who, and they're my students, my adult students, who have a real thirst for kinesthetic experience and manual accomplishment. And I think at a certain point, you spend hours, days, your career staring into a screen and doing these virtual accomplishments, virtual tasks, and you want to come back to your own body somehow. It's about the body. It's about the senses, the tactility. And the metaphor that I like to pull out is cooking. You can go to a restaurant and get a perfectly well-prepared meal that's appetizing. But when you cook for yourself, you eat twice. You eat in your mind when you're cooking. The ingredients, you smell the ingredients, you're preparing the ingredients, you're chopping, whatever operations are involved in preparing the meal. The anticipation of the meal is part of the meal. You're eating in your mind in anticipation. And then you sit down and you consume it, you ingest it, you digest it. You're eating twice. And when you make a print for yourself, when you learn how to cut linoleum, you learn how to cut a line in copper with a burin, you're at a place where you're capable of astonishing yourself again. And you never astonish yourself by ordering, food or getting a nice meal at a restaurant. Somebody else is astonishing you, maybe, if you're lucky. But I think we've become so desensitized. I mean, many of us have become desensitized to our own capacity, our own capacity for wonder, that this is the magnetism that printmaking and other hand skills, manual skills have for people. We draw people in because it is magical to re-experience these things.
I like how you're saying that, because in my mind, printmaking and ceramics are the two forms of art making where you don't really know what you're going to get when you open the kiln or pull it off the press or whatever.
Well,
yeah, and I like that idea of being just amazed at the thing that you just did. That's awesome. I love it. Well, that makes me want to turn toward the engraving, because you know how I love an engraving, David. So everybody who listens to Platemark knows that I've studied Stanley William Hayter and Atelier 17, or as David says, Atelier 17, which I haven't ingested fully, which was a shop known for teaching engraving, or having people explore engraving, I should say, probably better. So tell us about your journey to Paris. And well, we have to start before that, because the last time we talked, you told me about learning about engraving long before you ever got to Paris, and that's why you went to Paris. So start at the beginning.
I came to Oberlin College in the fall of 1977. And of course, I enrolled in Atelier and Relief. I think I took that class like 5 times. I don't know. So basically, I rooted myself in the printmaking studio from the beginning, and it became my second home. And Paul Arnold was the Atelier and Relief instructor there, and wonderful teacher. My style was very, very linear. I kind of learned by looking at Albrecht Dürer, Leonardo da Vinci, and like lots of hatch work and line systems on linear vocabulary. And I think he took a look at my etching work, and he kind of pulled me over and said, "Why don't you try this?" He had a burin and a stone and copper plate, and he said, this is how you cut a line and how you tune up the. And I just went at it, and it was kind of like crack to me. I just saw like, oh my, this is great. Like, look, you can do like, I don't have to put it in acid. I don't have to titrate, the strength of the acid. I don't have to coat with the ground, and there's no delay. I'm just going to go right to it, and then I can make this line right away. I kind of plowed through a bunch of plates pretty quickly without any particular skill. I mean, I remember looking at the burin and thinking, good heavens, how did I manage to get this instrument to that much copper without, putting a proper tip on it? But I just loved it right away instinctively. There's something impatient about me. I really like quick action, quick accomplishment. When I write a letter, I will not let my mind rest until it's like it's fluttering its wings. I read a letter and I put it down and I fold it. It's like it's fluttering its wings and saying, mail me. And I have to put it in an envelope, stamp it, address it, and walk it up to the corner of the mail. So it's the same way with engraving. I so like, oh my God, I can just cut the line right away. I don't have to go through all that folderol. And so there was this love of direct action that I had, and I just went nuts with it. I just thought, this is the best thing ever. And of course, you pull a proof and you realize this line is amazing because an etch line is based on corrosion. So all these little bubbles are going, and they're leaving these little holes, these little pits. So you look at an etch line, I think like, oh, that's a straight line, right? No, it's like ragged as a piece of yarn. And you look at a cut line, it's just like, whoa, that's like a vector on Illustrator, as opposed to like a charcoal line across a rough sidewalk. And I was like, this is amazing. You can get all this clarity and you can really bore into the detail and the hatching and the cross hatching and the flecking between the lines. There's this whole world of linear thrill that opens up when you're an engraver. And I just fell in love with that. And I did a bunch of engravings in school. But, that's what led me to, well, okay, so here we are. It's 1977 or 1978, and Mr. Arnold orders a projector, and the AV squad brings the projector in. And so it's a projector, with a reel-to-reel. And
right. Can you imagine having to order up a thing to project now? It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's just like, slow food, slow media.
Right.
and so it's Angels Wrestling, and Stanley Wayne Hader, this, I mean, it's hysterical. It's like these films they showed us in hygiene classes, like, now with the steel of the bone, we grapple with the, the copper, the unyielding surface of the copper. And like, oh my God, this guy's like a biblical patriarch. He's got this northern English accent and kind of baritone and is authoritative and is wearing a tie. Like people like coal miners were wearing ties at that. Like the man's wearing a tie in the printmaking studio with an apron over it. And it's like all very, very old school. And you're thinking like, oh my God, this is just so authoritative, and you're doing all this crazy stuff and dramatizing it. So it's like watching, have you ever seen like Les Enfants du Paradis? It's like one of these iconic films, but it's about printmaking. It's about what you do. It's about what you do, and you're doing it, and you think like, this guy's a legend, right? And then I get to my senior year, and I applied for a Watson Fellowship. I didn't get it because I'm a sloppy, arrogant little, well, so-and-so, and I didn't really do a good job of applying. I didn't really organize my materials effectively. So Professor Arnold wrote to Stanley Wim Hader, and what I'm holding in my hand now showing you is a mimeograph. Remember mimeographs?
Yeah.
It's a mimeograph of the letter that I got back from Hader on a typewriter. It was written on a typewriter. So here it is. This is my little Magna Carta moment there. And I thought, oh, wow, this is really going to happen. So I put in a few months at Styria, saved my money up, and I bought my own ticket. And I think at that point I'm living with my father, and he's, he did a lot for us, but he's not the most providential man. It's not going to throw his arm over my shoulder and say, Sonny boy, here's $2,000, have a great time. And like, that's not going to happen. I'm going to go with $1,500 in American Express checks in my shoe, which is what I did. And I hopscotched from one housing situation to, I had 4 different housing situations during my 9 months in Paris. And as you show up at the studio, and they're sort of expecting you, and they're sort of not, and you have money, for your tuition, and Desiree signs you in, takes your money, and you are welcomed into the fold. And you're led down to this little room in the basement. And I think I told you this before, but you're coming from the relative vastness of American spaces, the generosity, the interior volume of American spaces into a little Paris Atelier, 10 Rue Didot in Montparnasse. It's small. It's a small space. And we're in the basement of a small space with a lot of other people at basically tables, like picnic tables. So there's people from Norway, Argentina, quite a few Japanese people, Swiss artists, and some Americans. And of course, you gravitate toward the Americans because your parochial monolingual background leads you there. And a couple of Brits, I think. You start to make friends and make prints. And Hader would come down, the great man would come down and walk among you and give these little teachings to you, and very didactic, which I think by the point it had to be because he's been doing this for decades. And you do a series of exercises, which are in some way very similar to the ones that Ruth Leaf had us do when I was 13 years old. It's like a program that you go through. So there's certain didactic exercises that you perform.
Right. Well, and we should say that the Ruth Leaf studio that you attended as a young teenager, Ruth had studied with Hader. Did we say that already? I can't remember.
She did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she had
that's the
studied.
first I heard of Hader. I knew about Hader when I was a kid.
Right.
He was 79 at that point. We celebrated his 80th birthday. I think I had to be swatted away from the table because I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to help myself before he emerged, and was fed and the champagne. I was a hungry kid. It's like that $1,500 didn't go very far. It was kind of glorious because there you are. You're 21, 22 years old in Paris, and you're kind of starving, and you're making friends and smoking up a storm and drinking cheap wine. Discovered to my delight that you can buy a bottle of wine for less than a bottle of beer. It's wonderful because you're with other young people who are there for a purpose, and you have a job. Your job is to be a printmaker and to be there and to survive and just soak everything up. And it was both miserable and wonderful. Honestly, my family background is just kind of like, you want something? That's good. Go get it, right? So nobody's going to put together a plan for you. You want money? That's good. Go out and get some money.
Well, I mean, there's both two sides of the coin, right? One is, wow, what support in the sense of, you wanting to be an artist, where some parents would say, are you out of your effing mind? You need to go to law school.
Yeah.
Or something,
Oh, no. I mean, I'm just saying that's in the context of there's a line at which I was expected to be self-reliant.
Sure.
Very clearly drawn. And once I emerged from childhood, essentially, I was offered piano lessons. I took piano lessons. I lost interest, so I lost the piano lessons. I was offered printmaking. I exploded into printmaking and kept going to printmaking. But it's very clear. It's like what Garrison Keillor used to talk about on his show, is like parents existed in a world that was mysterious to children.
Yes.
Like there wasn't this integration between the grown-up world and the world of the child. Those conversations didn't take place. So it was very much, there was freedom and there was independence, and there was also the self-reliance that came with it. So that's largely the story of my year in Paris at Atelier du Set. And there were wonderful people there, really creative, talented people, really, really hospitable. There was a Japanese community that's very, I don't know, it's like just generous and providential. We were invited to people's homes. I ate sushi for the first time. Japanese culture and history and language was explained to me. And very gently, respectfully, there were native Parisians that we met who invited us into their homes. And we weren't denied anything, really. It was this kind of postgraduate study, independent study. And I worked my hiney off making engravings. And I've shown some of them to you. And I look back at them and I did that? Really went at it like I meant it. I had this illusion that I was going to go back to Styria with these engravings, and they'd say, oh, we simply must publish your engravings. Now you're going to be one of our artists, and we're all going to go to work publishing. That's because it's absolute utter vanity on my part, but delusion of grandeur that spurred me on to work hard and make some prints.
Okay, so after the 30-year break from printmaking, you dove back in with a gigantic engraving of a rhino.
I dove back in with an etching of a rhino, and then I decided to make a larger etching of a rhino. And I recounted this to you incorrectly before, and I did not correctly bite the etching because we're using with ferric chloride now, and I'm from the old nitric acid school, which is like it really just like nitric, and like ferric is kind of like, oh, you have to tilt the plate and then let the precipitate come off of it. I don't know. It looks spit to me, and I proofed it up, and it was like a faint. So I took out my burin and I just started cutting to fix it, and I came up with this head and shoulder engraving of its rhino. I can pull it out if you like and show it to you, but
Sure.
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm going to show you an intermediate state
okay.
of the plate. So this is,
oh boy,
before I've gotten into the background but so this is after a 30-year hiatus.
Wow. And that's all etching?
This is engraving.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a proof of I keep everything. I probably have a proof of the original faint state of the etching.
Okay.
But this was disappointing to me because it was so faint that it just didn't. Yeah, you can sort of see it in this state. You can sort of see like over in this part.
Yeah.
And you can see I've started to cut in here with the burin. You see how much more strongly the line's registering, whereas it's rather it's sort of tenuous over here.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the first one, and then that got Julia Samuels was working here. She I hadn't wiped a plate in decades, so she kind of brought me back into how to correctly wipe an engraving. She was very helpful that way. And Rachel Ostro, who was working for Kiki Smith, printing for her, was also very helpful. And it got into a show at IPC NY. It was published by the artist. So I got a little bit of sunshine, after darkness, decades of darkness. No, I mean, it was great. And then, of course, that encouraged me, and I did a whole bunch more of engravings. And they were largely based on, our son was very young at that point. We were going around to zoos a lot, so I would take pictures of zoo animals and make engravings. So I'm holding up this engraving of a gorilla that I did. So, because this was kind of like the subject matter that I had was what I was collecting in our travels.
Sure, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you work with what you have.
Right, exactly.
And I would engrave at home, and I would go into the studio at 10:30 at night and proof up and come home at 12:30 and be dead in the morning. But this is how I got back into it. I just found it's almost like riding a bicycle, because it's something you learn when you're young. I don't know, your amygdala, your frontal cortex is locking onto this stuff. And it's just like, oh, it's still there. I still know how to ride the unicycle, and I can get up on there and do it. And then I undertook gradually came to undertake this really vast project. It's 33 inches by 55 inches. And I could, with the benefit of another pause, I could pull it out and show it to you.
Oh, sure.
But this thing is this kind of miniaturist tradition in engraving, and it's kind of like all these precious little things, and they have to enter this little enclosure, this rectangular enclosure, going into this little cave of mystery. And I want the print to come out at you. I want you to be in your space and in your face. I want it to be big. So I undertook this Kickstarter project, and I raised money.
Oh gosh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. So I had to raise money to buy it. There's a pneumatic burin that is used typically by jewelers and gunsmiths.
The guns.
Yeah, but there are people who engrave Rolex watches with these fantastic, like Renaissance level skill and inlaid gold and oh, if you're into that sort of thing. But I just wanted to make a really big engraving. So if you'll bear with me for a moment,
Sure.
I'll pull it out and show it to you.
Okay. It's so big it's rolled. How much did that piece of copper cost?
I forget. There's a place I send away for it. It was, I think it might have been $700. But the instrument, no, it was $400, and the engraver was like $3,500, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I say show this to you, but I can't really.
You can't back up far enough. Oh my God. Jesus.
So this is impossible, but yeah. So this is the state that it's in now.
Are you saying it's not finished?
It's not finished.
What?
I'll
Wait, what?
explain.
Okay.
I'll explain. But look, see, you have a good sense of the size of the thing.
Yes, it's
You can't
wider.
really get into the detail because I can't really hold it close enough to the screen.
Right.
For you to see.
Don't compromise the
There's
print.
also some really nice work on the foreground.
Wow.
Peek at that.
Man.
My laptop is actually sitting on top of the plate for that engraving. It's directly beneath this laptop.
Oh my gosh.
It's on this table and it's covered with a sheet of plywood to protect it. But one of my ongoing projects is to get back into this and to finish it. But it got stalled a couple of years ago, and I put aside engraving for a time. And for reasons I'd rather not get into.
Okay. Okay. What more do you need to add to the plate? More background, or are you just still tightening the figure of the rhino?
Time goes by and you look at things again and you think, well, maybe I could have done that little patch a little bit better. You might need a little bit more work in the background, like put a halftone in background, some kind of linear perspective.
I disagree.
Okay. I wish I could just send it to you as a legible image, but I have a lot of latent energy that I could plow back into engraving very, very happily. I tend to be a little bit obsessive in my pursuits. I really like to burrow into things. And the fact that I'm a high school teacher means that my time is leftover time. So I have this really emotionally draining job, and I come to the studio and it's like my whole art practice has moved toward things that are very spontaneously conceived. I don't really have a program. I sort of make a lot of interesting parts. Like I'll have sculptural elements like this one just hanging around the studio.
Right.
And then there might be another element hanging around the studio that I think you need to meet this other element, and I'll just put you together. I look a lot at Calder. I look a lot at Sophie Teuber art. I look at Picasso and Louise Nevelson, Louise Bourgeois. And a lot of their work is just, it's very playful and inventive in a sense. You know, it's very free. So a very formal, structured, classical practice like engraving, it's like a whole other head. And you really just have to stay with it. You really just have to be dedicated, like really put yourself in the box and stay in the box.
But I'm fascinated that you say that, because Hader's whole thing was about spontaneity in a sense, but creating on the plate itself and having your subconscious direct you so that it was a less burrow-in idea of what engraving should be do.
My work at Atelier was not at all like Hader's. I was doing work, I was on like pop art. Like I'd go to the Pompidou and I'd see, or Lichtenstein, or if there's a Swedish artist, I forget his name, but a lot of it was collage work, or like Mimo Rotella or somebody like that, where you're taking commercial imagery and you're just kind of playing with it. And a lot of it is, it's very close to sort of the original reproductive purpose of printmaking. You know, like there's a compound image I did that was taken from a Purina ad and an article in Libération and an archival photograph I found at the Pompidou Center. So a lot of it was really about reproduction. But since then, like the engravings that I just showed you are very much about drawing on the plate. It's much closer to what Hayter was doing. It's like you're using the burin as a drawing instrument. You're in conversation with the material. You're not duplicating a painting or a drawing.
Right.
You're not creating reproduction. You're creating an original work of art. So my practice has moved in that direction. But essentially, that's what I'm doing with the materials I have now. I'm just playing with them. I'll pick up something and I'll just start very spontaneously hewing away. In my estimation, this is kind of close to what Hayter was doing.
It's very Hayterian.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of play in it. And it's like, devil may care. I'm just going to go where the brush tells me to and enjoy my little journey. So, yeah.
I think that's good. It's a nice balance to a very stressful day job, you know?
It is. But I feel like I would really need to be retired to get back into engraving the way that I know that I can, and I know that I will. And it's a little bit funny because printmaking is sort of a box, and engraving really is a box. It's a box within a box. And that's part of what I think led me away from printmaking when I was 23 is I think like, oh, I've reached the walls of this world. I know where it begins and I know where it ends. We're working on this Rauschenberg series, the Arcanum series at s3e, and we were very, very painstakingly reproducing collages that he'd made at Black Mountain College in the 40s, going to great, what's the right color? I guess silk swatches. I'd be sent off. I'd be like the errand boy. See if he has this color. See if he has any roll ends in this color. Or going to the die cutters, and like you'd have a special die made to stamp out fragments of silk in this particular shape that Rauschenberg just cut with a pair of scissors, several decades before. Like we had to reproduce the packaging from the cover from a rolling paper, from Spain or something. All these hodgy-podgy elements that you just thrown into this collage. And I'm thinking like Rauschenberg is doing whatever Rauschenberg wants to. Rauschenberg's not a printmaker. We're printmakers. And we're the elves, the shoemaker and the elves and he's the guy who's wearing the shoes. Like if you really want to be an artist, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And printmaking was very, very comfortable to me at that point. I did a lot. I worked in lithography, engraving, relief. I was just going through all this stuff I did in college, and it's like we were given a lot of freedom and a lot of support, and I did a lot of things that it started to feel small. It started to feel small.
It's a conundrum. Like we like our little club, but we need to break out of our little club, but we like our little club.
Well, I don't feel constrained by printmaking anymore because a lot like what you're seeing behind me on the wall, I was led to that by printmaking. I could see what would happen to a print when you put it up on the street and we put it on a light pole and half of it gets clawed away or falls away or somebody and there's this accidental beauty that occurs when you slap images together. I just want them all to be my images. And so that's what I do in the studio is I create these structures and I start fiddling around with paper and then eventually paint. I think like, well, no, I mean, I don't have to make a print to get this. I could just like paint it on here and then surprise myself with something else. So it all came back out of printmaking.
Sure. You have a really interesting relationship with it, though. This is a fascinating mind puzzle. It's fascinating. I like it.
It's all connected. Everything's connected.
Right, exactly.
You started by asking about street art, and I'm gonna just recall living in the East Village in the 80s and walking past these walls where people had been putting up posters, and they would accumulate, and they'd become this kind of giant scabrous shingle that would become detached from the wall. It would be kind of halfway hanging off the wall, flapping in the wind, and people would still be posting on top of it. It was just this like huge horror collage, hanging off the side of a building. I remember like ripping part of one off and sending it to my girlfriend in Massachusetts and thinking, this is a piece of New York for you. And there's something about the accidental, the collision of all these images coming together and for commercial purposes or venal purposes or whatever purpose. Like a lot of it had to do with commerce, whether it be theater, shoes, clothing, accessories, whatever it is, politics. You think about what Mimo Rotella did and tearing down posters and reassembling them, using posters as his raw materials to create something entirely new and surprising. And for me, this is part of what street art is just like the magic of the city, the skin of the city. You're walking around, and it could be Pompeii in 79 AD, or I forget when it was, BC. There was graffiti on the walls then. There were people, scratching their names into walls. It's been going on forever. But you look at these photographs by Auger, for example, or the movie The Bicycle Thief. The father is actually employed as a wheat paster. He's putting up posters, and he's bad at it. He's like lovingly slapping this poster of a female movie star on a board. He's doing a really bad job. It's all kinds of wrinkly, and he's ogling the image, and his bike gets stolen. But this is part of the the interest of living in a saturated urban environment. The architecture, the art, the people, the clothing that the people are wearing, the shape of their bodies, the artwork, the colors, like the posters.
Well, I like the idea of the city as a participant in the art,
Yeah. And you want to be part of that sort of the concert of the...
Yeah. Hard to make a living at it, but...
No, you can't. But you can make an impression.
You can. Is there anything coming up that you want to let everyone know about as you enjoy your last few weeks of summer?
Just stay tuned to this Bat channel. I mean, I do post on Instagram sometimes, and I am working on public art projects, and I do bring printmaking and art into my teaching at Clara Barton High School. I do portraits of kids, and I've done printmaking projects with them too. I mean, have a look at my Instagram feed, and it's David F. Barthold, and you might find something of interest there. I wish to express my effusive gratitude to you and to everyone else I've mentioned who's been very generous, and it's the word. What I want to end with is that printmakers tend to be really good people because we have to share. I think it's part of what printmakers do is you share space, you share presses. You don't go off into a corner or into some tragic little garret with your little press and pursue your art in solitude. You have to be in these shared spaces. So I just feel like that's part of the magic of being a printmaker, is knowing that you're a community person, and that teaching, learning, sharing is a big part of that. Oh, and I also really enjoyed Deb Puretz's interview that you did with her.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate being brought into awareness of her work.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a random meeting. And as we kept talking, we had lunch one day, and I was like, you have a really interesting path through this whole ecosystem. Like I think it's worth just talking about how, that's always my goal, right? Like there's so many ways to be in it or adjacent to it, or yeah, she had an interesting story.
One last and very loud and a very important note is my thanks to my spouse, Sarah Dranoff, and our son, Julian, for their tolerance of all the messes I've created as a printmaker at home, copper shavings and linoleum included, and their support, and their really strong support, sustained strong support of my work. I'm very grateful for the love and support that I get at home.
Oh, that's very sweet. And also you could add a coda to that, which is in our conversation for the other project. You spent a minute thanking all of the moms of the kids in the neighborhood who helped point kids to the places where they would excel and enjoy things, as I recall. It was your mom and a friend.
You among them. I mean, I know you are many, many things to many people, but you are also mother, and I recognize that.
True.
But yeah, it was Helen Schiavo, was a mom in the community. And she helped my mom find her friend, Ruth Leaf, and the moms, they used to take us on trips to museums. And we went to the cloisters, saw the Van Gogh shows around 1970. I forget, there was a big one. It was this madman situation where your father wore a Brooks Brothers suit and a Borsellino Diamante hat and a silk tie, and he came home and you kissed him. You were with your moms all the time, and they're the ones who ushered you into these cultural experiences, largely, not exclusively, but largely. So yes.
Yeah.
My thanks to the moms, including the one I'm married to.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. I'd like to meet her.
I'd like you to meet her someday, and you will.
Maybe we will in Brooklyn.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for talking to Platemark today. I really appreciate your time, and we are all of our various reschedulings that we had to do. I'm glad we finally got it done.
It's an honor, Anne. Thank you for including me.
There's something so powerful about the idea of a master engraver using those same meticulous skills to paste art onto a sidewalk shed in Brooklyn. It reminds us that whether a print is in the museum, archive, or on a brick wall, its purpose is to make us stop, look, and remember. A huge thank you to David Barthold for being so candid about his hiatus, his return to the press, and his commitment to the public eye. If you want to see David's incredible street murals and his meticulous engravings, I've linked his website and Instagram in the show notes. If you're in New York, keep your eyes peeled. You might just spot a Barthold original on your next walk through the city. I need to thank my team, as usual, Dan Fury of Extension Audio for being my sound guy. Thanks, Dan. You're a lifesaver. Uncle Michael Diamond for the use of his original music, and Skip Barnhart and Lee Turner for the studio sounds they sent that make up the intro and outro of each episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider hitting the support and donate button over on the website and help me keep the lights on, or tell a friend, leave us a review. It does help us get the word out, and it's the best way to help us keep these conversations going and grow our printmaking community. Until next time, I'm Anne Schaefer, and this is Platemark.